Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 2 of Inbound Now, expert interview series put on by HubSpot. I'm your host, David Wells, and today I have a very special guest with us, David Siteman Garland of theRiseToTheTop.com and a brand new author of Smarter, Faster, Cheaper, non-boring, fluff-free strategies on how to market and promote your business. So welcome to the show. Hey, there you go. I got the book on my Kindle, but...
Well, thanks for having me, David. It's great to be on. And I got to tell you right now, I'm loving the iPad in the background. Like, I might have to steal that for future use. I'll give you credit once when I do it, but I love it. It's doing different things. I don't know what you have going on, some kind of automatic program, but I'm loving it.
Nice. Yeah, I put it on a slideshow. I have all these different, visualization apps. I was going to put one on. I don't know if it would be too distracting or if it would be like, wow, that's really cool.
I like it, man.
Because we're all about the content here, so I don't know if I want to distract the viewers or what have you, but yeah. So, I wanted to get you on the show today to talk about some of the key concepts in your new book, kind of about becoming a trusted authority and thought leader in whatever your industry may be, and then dive a little bit deeper into content creation because you talk a lot about it in the book, and you're all about it over there at the Rise to the Top, and then switch gears a little bit and talk about what's coming up in 2011 that we should be looking out for. So let's jump.
Lots to cover.
Lots to cover and a little bit of time, so let's jump into it. So about the book, how did you decide to take the plunge and write a book? And who's the book really geared for?
Yeah, it's a good question. The plunge came from. I just didn't want to write a book to write a book. I wanted to do something that I thought was very meaningful. And I do a web show. I've done show on ABC, a variety of different things, all geared around what I like to call the hustling entrepreneur, which falls into a lot of categories from small all the way to big. But really, I love creating content for people like me, people that are entrepreneurs. And that is really who the book was designed for. And the idea came from this, is that I started to realize on my show that there were some distinctive ways that I marketed, not really necessarily even on purpose, sort of by accident, that built the audience and the community on my show from 0 to 100,000 in less than 2 years. And I started to realize that there were some patterns in there, and that more importantly, I do interviews on my show, that these patterns weren't, me getting lucky or very unique to my situation. I started to realize that a lot of other companies were doing things similar in their own way, if you will. So my big concept for the book is I wanted to, one, show people sort of the insider way of building a community and audience by being smarter, faster, cheaper, as opposed to dumber, slower, expensive. And it wasn't, I didn't want to write something that was the David show, if you will. I wanted to bring in stories from others. I wanted to bring in insight and ideas and kind of have it as a buffet for entrepreneurs and business owners to pick through and get some concepts that they can use and implement right away with their business.
Right. And, it seems like it's a compilation over the past couple of years. You've done over, 150 interviews with some pretty big name people, Tim Ferriss, Chris Brogan, Gary Vaynerchuk, Seth Godin, the marketing mastermind, and Tony Hesh from Zappos. You lay out those real life examples in the book, and I thought it was really useful.
Oh yeah, well thank you. Yeah, I think it's interesting because as you know, and you work with small businesses, big businesses, entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are a little bit different. It was sort of like that Jeep thing that used to go on like in the 90s where it's a Jeep thing you wouldn't understand, those stickers that were everywhere.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs, what I've noticed is that we learn a little bit differently. Like if you tell us what to do, we're going to cry and run away and do it differently anyway, because that's why we're entrepreneurs and we're weird. And so in the book I thought, okay, if you tell people how to do something, there's a tendency for it not being applicable to people in different, industries or whatever it may be. So I thought kind of a better approach, as opposed to the how, because I think that's a little overrated, was go with, stories of other people and takeaways and things that would kind of spark the imagination and say, oh, wait a minute, yeah, I don't want to do it exactly like that, but that was a great idea that I can use, in my own way, if you will, for my business. And that was kind of one of the key kind of overarching things that I wanted to do with the book.
Right, right. So taking those stories and then taking, the nugget from here and that and then piece it all together. Yeah. I thought it was put together really well, and it was a great read. I actually bought it for the plane ride back to North Carolina for the holidays, and it was pretty good.
Time. I like it.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. So another concept in the book that you talk about, the barriers to successful marketing are kind of crumbling. And instead of, outspending the old mantra of how marketing kind of went, it's time to think about out-educating, out-hustling, out-giving, out-caring, and out-creating to kind of get in front of these people and really, really maximize your marketing. I mean, this sounds like a ton of work, and it is. I know it is from, experience. What would you suggest someone kind of starting out, getting into this mindset?
Yeah.
Where should they start?
Yeah, and it's an interesting situation because if I were to add another word on the book, it'd be smarter, faster, cheaper, patienter. Yeah, or whatever we're going to call it, because that's the key thing is that you can do all this stuff now by being smarter, faster, cheaper. But yes, it's time consuming. So I'm a big believer, and I've seen this from other examples too. I'm clearly not the only one. I'm an inbound marketing person as well. But I'm a big believer that the best way, or one of the best ways to really build trust and longevity of a brand now, being a little guy, and not wanting to spend $1 zillion is really by creating interesting, entertaining, and inspiring content. And a lot of times that can be overwhelming because you look at it and you say, well, where do I get started? And what do I talk about? And is this going to take all my time away from my business? And if you look at people like myself or HubSpot or Gary Vaynerchuk or Chris Brogan, it can be a little bit intimidating because we all create a lot of content, right? I mean, we all create like 5 to 7 days a week of content. You might look at that and you're like, I'm going to go cry myself to sleep as opposed to doing this. And I say, don't do that. Don't do that. Is start with one thing that you can do that's replicable. This is one of the most important concepts in here. One thing, and what I mean by replicable, David, is this. If you're going to run out of content in 10 posts, or if you're going to run out of content in 30 posts, it's going to be hard to be successful because the winners in this content game are the ones that are consistent, right? They can keep doing things. I like to call it sort of like the late night talk show model, if you will. Like Jay Leno or whatever, they've been on the air, the model's been on the air. Why? Because there's always some, stupid celebrity to interview and like a little band and, it's very kind of course it can be changed within each segment, but there's like a format that's replicable that you can do over and over and over again. And I think that's the challenge as a business is choose one thing that you might want to try and get started with it. And it might be a web show, it might be a blog series, it might be video, it might be audio. There's all kinds of different mediums, and people watch, listen, or read all of them. So I don't think one's necessarily better than the other. I love video because I think it shows your personality more than anything else. But I would choose one piece that you can do and get started with once a week, Wednesdays, whatever it may be. And that's going to be your content day where you're going to put stuff together and you're really going to focus, getting the content up and then spending the 80% the rest of your time, 20% on creating the content, 80% of your time marketing and promoting that content and building relationships. And I think a lot of people miss the mark on that 20-80 rule and end up doing it the reverse.
Right, right. I think, being consistent about it is, like you're saying, is key. It's kind of like it transferred from the old methodology of, kind of like you were saying, the talk show, where it's like every night it's kind of the same format. People get used to it and they want to see something new. So you got to keep up with that and play to where your strengths are, like you said.
Yeah.
If you're better at doing video, if you have a personality, you're not the best. If you're not Shakespeare, like you say in the book, not everyone's Shakespeare. Then think about creating video content and then outsourcing. Having someone do a transcription of that show to get that text in there for search engines. So.
Right, and you don't have to be Spielberg to do the video, right? And
right.
You don't have to be Shakespeare and Spielberg. And I think as soon as we accept that I'd arguably say the more human you can be, the better, because we connect with humans. Like, if it's trying to be perfect, like, you don't need the green screen and all that kind of stuff behind you to do it. And what's interesting about video that I find, and again, this isn't necessarily true of the other mediums, exactly what you said. Once you create video, whether it's a tip series, a web show, an interview series like this one or mine, whatever it may be, you do have the other formats now. You can take the audio, and you can also transcribe it into text. So now you have kind of the triple threat, if you will. So I think that's one of the interesting, appealing things about video. Is it for everyone? No, but it might be for you. And if you're listening and you're thinking, oh, you're watching, this is for me, don't fight that. I mean, if it terrifies you and it's something that you never, ever want to do, you know what? There's other things you can do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Things that you enjoy or think you might enjoy, and it doesn't matter whether you're good or not, that good can happen over time. I can tell you right now, when I started on video, I was awful. I was spray tan, and you have no idea, man. It was embarrassing, and I still leave it up to this day as a reminder that you don't, just because you're excited about it, doesn't mean that you're going to be amazing, so don't let that be a setback. Like everything, it takes practice. It takes time to get better at it. And, you can't just expect to flip on the camera and be, I'm looking for a terrible example, Larry King, or whatever it may be, but younger probably, unless you're not. It takes time and practice.
Right. And, that's one of the things, you mentioned in your book that keeps people out of the game because they're afraid. And it's, showing your flaws, having a mix-up in the video here and there. It shows that you're human. It puts a human face on your brand, and it just makes people like you even more. And like you said, over time, you get better and better. So
I 100% agree. It's funny. We've had, on my show, doing 150 video interviews online, and we've done, 100+ in person, just all kinds of different interviews, and all different kinds of different formats. Meaning I've had a TV show where it's like, okay, we got to get this entire guy's life story in 4 minutes. And I'm like, what am I going to do? To video online where there's more authenticity allowed in it because, you can do all kinds of different lengths. And what I've noticed is when funny things happen that are humanizing, it creates a much better connection with the viewer. I mean, we've had cats and babies and random people walking in and power going out. I mean, we've had all kinds of interesting things happen during the interviews. And I think what it ends up doing is people are like, well, this isn't some kind of guru on a mountain, quote unquote, talking down to me or some jerk. This is a human. And I think that we've seen that with social media. We've seen that with what's going on online. We want to connect with people. And I think that that's an amazing way to do it.
Right. All right, so switching gears a little bit, like in your book you mentioned, product pushing and the hard seller out, and the smarter, faster, cheaper way to become a trusted resource and an authority figure that someone knows, likes, and trusts. That's who you buy from. So, what are some ways, time and time again, that you've seen that can kind of help build that authority and trust within and around a community?
Yeah, so it's interesting because someone asked me this question the other day, and I think it was very important. People said, like, when you were creating, we have a community of hustling entrepreneurs, right? And then people also say, oh, well, that's also resulted in things that have happened good for you. Like, David, like, you've done stuff, so now you kind of built your personal brand, and you could replace personal brand with business, right? It's not, it could just be me or it could be a bigger business. And they asked me, did you focus on building your brand or the community or what'd you do? My focus was always on the community. It was saying this, look, I'm going to build up the community. That's going to be my focus, is creating things interesting for a very specific niche of people. That's what I want to do. I want to create interesting content for those people, okay? And good things will happen as a result of that. When you build a community that trusts you, then there's all kinds of things that can happen. You might get referred to someone. They might, if you have a product or service, they might purchase it. But it's the soft sell. It's people not leading off with, buy this, which is not replicable. You might put it on Twitter one day or Facebook one day, but you see people that have success in this space, and the big people, the people that are really successful, like example, Chris Brogan, right? We all know Chris Brogan, but if you look at Chris and dissect him down, sorry, Chris, we're dissecting you, down to little pieces, you can see the kind of smarter, faster, cheaper methodology working, where he built this community of small business owners, okay, and sort of entrepreneurs that read his content, never asked for anything. When his book came out, everyone was receptive to it when Trust Agents came out because he had already built this community, okay?
Right,
and then he was also able to build businesses as a result of the community without directly selling them. So, for example, he consults with big brands. He does, other things that aren't directly selling to his community as a result of his experience building it. So you have a network, you have trusted people, and every community needs a leader. And that leader can be an individual, it can be a business, made up of individuals. And what I've noticed just on a business level, as soon as I focused everything on community, all kinds of good stuff happening. As we talk, Google hired me to do some work. There's been a variety of different awesome things that have happened on a business, on an economic level, by focusing on giving people awesome stuff. And I think that's one of the critical things that we often overlook, because we try to reverse that. We try to go for the sale right away, or try to do that stuff without building that trust with a community.
Right. And one of the things in your book, you kind of talk about how you did it, and also 37 Signals, where they started building up a community before they even had a product. And I thought this was pretty interesting. Would you mind diving a little bit deeper and kind of talking about how it's kind of like the mantra, you network to get a better job before you're out of a job, right? It's like building that building a community before you need it. So how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, chicken or egg, right? And it's one of those questions I ask a lot of people that build a community. I said, did you have a product first and service, or did you not have a product or service first and develop it later? And there's a mix. There's successes on both ways, And I think that second way is an even more interesting way, which is no product or service yet, and we're going to focus on building community. So the 37 Signals example is this: they created signal versus noise. That was the first thing they did. These guys were working at other jobs. They were developing kind of stuff on the side. They decided to create this community of designers and developers and a very specific niche by talking about creation and stuff that those people would find interesting. And they've now evolved. They've got a podcast. They got a variety of different content they create. But I always thought that 37 Signals, which creates all these cool web apps, started with web apps and then said, let's build a blog. And it was the other way around. They built this community and then started kind of asking them questions. Hey, we're working on this product, that can help you do collaborations. That's something you're interested in. It started to become the community essentially told them what they wanted. They built it in their own way and then sold it back to the community. And everyone's happy because they felt like the trust was there. They got to buy in to be part of the product or service, meaning that, feedback was actually listened to, which is a big difference than a lot of other companies. And, it's really propelled them. And you can make the argument on the other side, people saying, well, what do you do for revenue now? Right? Because that's a long-term strategy. And I think those guys, and another guy that I know named Timothy Sykes, and there's many other examples, have been smart with it, is they find other ways to make revenue at the moment while they build the community. Right? And meaning that other way might be bagging groceries, probably not, but it might be that you're doing consulting on the side. It might be that you have a day job and you're working on this in the after hours. It might be that you save up enough money. That's something I did when I started my company. I had enough money for, I want to say 6 months, somewhere around there, that I had saved up so that I could survive even if I wasn't making a nickel, right? And I think that we once you take that mentality and you can focus on community, this stuff flips. I mean, it flips and the people become successful. Look at 37 Signals now, one of the more successful software companies. I want to say they have 2 million or something paying subscribers. I mean, it's something insane. Yeah,
it's pretty big. They're making a lot of money over there.
Right, they're making a lot of money. And they're not pissing off anyone, and they've got a community of raving fans that continue to increase every day. And I think that the takeaways from that, besides the way they went about it, was look what they did. They didn't create the 37 Signals product community because no one would have cared, right? No one cares about your products and services except you. They do have a product blog now, but it was later on. Instead, they said, what is the thing with the people that we want to track that they're interested in and we're interested in? It was a simple question, often not answered, right? What are they interested in? Developers, well, they like design and they like usability and they like, blank and they like blank. Great, that's stuff we love. Let's talk about it. If it doesn't work, if you don't have buy-in from both ways, meaning you create something that no one cares about, that's probably not going to be fun. And if you create something you don't care about but someone else does, it's also not going to work. So it's finding that medium of an interest, a passion, a hobby, whatever it may be. That's what the content gets created on. And later on, that's where people buy the products and services.
So it revolves around your product. You're educating them on how to, do better at their own job, tips and tricks on how to make their life easier. And in turn, you're going to become a trusted resource. And when push comes to shove and they actually do need a product like yours, you're going to be top of mind.
Exactly,
And-
exactly.
Right.
And that's the key thing. I have yet to find an industry, and I've yet to find an industry where you can't come up with something that people find interesting in the demographic, right? It might be trickier for some industries than others. Like there was a gas company here, right? Like nothing more boring than like gas and snacks, right? I mean, like what are you no one's sitting there saying, God, I can't wait to watch a video about a gas pump, right?
Yeah.
There's probably that like one creepy guy who's like, I can't wait for the gas pump video. But for the most part, that's something that isn't an interest or hobby, right? So I went to them and I said, well, what is an interest or hobby of the type of people that you're trying to attract? And what ended up being local sports teams, right? It's in St. Louis. Cardinals and Rams fans, that's what they do a lot of promotions with. I said, well, you just answered your question. No one cares about the gas and the chips. People care about the Rams, the Blues, and the Cardinals in St. Louis. So your content, that's where it needs to go. The direction towards that.
Right.
And building a community of raving local sports fans. And oh, by the way, you sell gas products and services. And I think that's an interesting way to deconstruct sort of the smarter, faster, cheaper marketing strategy, if you will.
Okay, cool. So in the book, you say that content is king, marketing is queen, and your website is your throne. What do you mean when you say your website is your throne?
All right, so number one, we've always heard, right? Content's king.
Yeah.
Number two was made popular by Gary Vaynerchuk, where he kept saying, all the time, like, marketing's the queen. Gary, marketing's the queen.
Yeah. Crush it.
And what? Yeah, crush it, pound, crush it. So the third thing that I think that we miss is you forget that you need to have a hub, pun intended, that you own, right? That someone else does not own. Your slice of real estate on the web. And I think this is one of the most simple things that is also one of the most overlooked things, right? Because Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all these tools, they're fantastic stuff. I use them all. And most people I talk to use many, many tools, or focus on a couple. But again, we do not own that stuff. If tomorrow Twitter goes down and everyone's like, peace out, it's now Flitter, and you start with 0 people, you're screwed.
Right.
If that's all you focused on, right? And when you have your own home that is also creating content, you're going to own the subscribers. You're going to own the followers. You're going to have the emails because people are coming to you. Those other outposts can be used to form relationships, to bring people in, to build, do other things. But when you don't have your home, it can be quickly taken away from you. And so I think that's key. Whether you're starting a show, a blog, a tip series, I don't know what kind of content you are, for Lord's sake, just promise me one thing. Just